Thanks so much for listening to No Lions Here with me, Big Panda. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to No Lions Here. My name is Big Panda, and I'm a recovering sex addict. I'm gonna be honest, I have tried to record this intro probably 15 times. I can't get into a flow today. So we're gonna try this intro out. Hopefully this one works, and if it doesn't, well, I'll keep trying. But so this episode is not a new episode; it's new to YouTube. So this episode is actually episode 45 with Nate Geyer. So I've had this desire and this want to get on YouTube for probably about a year now, maybe a little over. That was kind of always in the plan with the podcast, right? It was to get on YouTube. Well, I've been on YouTube for the last, probably almost 2 months now. And so I don't have a new episode dropping this week. However, back when, we're kind of gearing up for YouTube, I started video recording some of the episodes that I would have for some of the guests, like the therapist. So I was like, okay, no new episode this week. Let me go in and I'll just throw in a new intro and then we'll transition into the video. So that's what we're doing. So if you are new to the channel, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out what we're doing here. I hope that you like it. Go ahead and give us a subscribe, a like, a follow. You can check out the full catalog of episodes. I got 58 episodes up on Spotify. Just Spotify, No Lions Here. So this episode 45 with Nate Geyer. Awesome interview, awesome guy. A little backstory on mine and Nate's relationship. So Nate is a therapist at Beginning It Institute where I went to treatment, and I got to work with him both times that I was there as my one-on-one therapist, back when I did the 14-day trauma intensive and also the 5-day trauma intensive. I got to work with him both times, and Nate and the work that I got to do with him, it was awesome. Nate is empathetic, compassionate, really understanding, and he pulled a lot out of me. So I'm super grateful anytime I have him on the show. Super excited to have him back on in the future. So for the time being, want to introduce you guys to him. If you haven't already heard those episodes, there's 2 episodes out there that I have with him, and this is the second episode. So definitely make sure to go check those out. Go check out all of the episodes on Spotify. And as always, if there's any topics or anything that you guys would like to hear me discussed on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to me, nolionshere@gmail.com. Again, that's nolionshere.com. nolionshere@gmail.com. Haha, that's what it is. I always kind of screw those up sometimes. Again, my flow feels a little off today. So you know what? I'm probably going to leave this all in there because this is just me being real, being raw. So, without further ado, because clearly I'm kind of stumbling over things today. So without further ado, here is the full video episode with Nate Geyer. I really hope that you guys enjoy it. Thanks so much for stopping by. How's it going, Nate?
Good, man. It's really good. Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it. Love the show, brother.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And if you guys haven't heard Nate and I's first episode, go check that out. Shameless plug here. Out of the Flames with Nate Geyer. Awesome episode. A little backstory if you haven't heard Nate before. Nate is a therapist at BAI, Beginning It Institute, and him and I got a chance to kind of work one-on-one when I was out there both times. So really grateful for that. And so I'm really excited to have you back, man, and talk a little recovery, talk a little sex addiction, and kind of what goes into that. So yeah, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate that. And have I seen that you're now a CSAT candidate?
Oh, yeah, I am. I'm actually I'm about to be fully certed, and that's
Oh
really exciting.
man,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm really pumped. I just got through my last module for the training. And that was really cool. We actually got to talk with Patrick Carnes, who If anybody listening doesn't know that guy, he's essentially the godfather of sex addiction treatment. And that was really neat to hear him speak, and he views sex addiction as a hero's journey, which is a really common sort of archetype in a narrative. Think Star Wars, Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. Like Luke becomes this, he's on this backwater planet and has no idea of his true destiny, right? And suddenly he's thrust into this deeper calling, this force that pulls him into a larger world greater than himself, and he has sort of this destiny. But he encounters along the way of this journey uh, challenges that challenges his fortitude, challenges his strength, his wisdom, his compassion, even his relationships towards the end. And Carnes brings that in and views sex addiction work very similarly to that, minus all the Ewoks and the sort of furry things at the end, But I thought that was really fascinating. I thought that was a really
Yeah.
cool way of looking at this type of treatment as guys are going through this journey, that they're the hero of their story. They're not the villain in this sort of way that their shame has portrayed them for so long. They're actually the hero, but they have to accept the journey. They have to accept that the force has pulled them into something greater than themselves. And that's what recovery is. And so that was really cool. So I'm almost done.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. That's
Thanks.
really cool. And I know that that's probably, going to benefit you a whole lot in the work that you're doing. And it's cool that like you didn't have to necessarily be a CSAT to get into this field. Like
Mhm.
I think that that's really cool, and that because you're in the field now, you get this opportunity to now train as a CSAT and actually become a CSAT. And so I think that's awesome, man. I know when I had Scott on, him and I kind of touched on kind of that process a little bit, and he brought up the modules, and so that's awesome, man. I'm really happy for you.
Thanks for saying that. Yeah, the CSAT training it's a long sort of certification process for a reason. Like I believe that the training for this is meaningful, and it sort of needs to be longer in a lot of ways, because sex in and of itself is a very complex experience. There's a lot of factors that play into that, and there's a lot of things that come into our sexual identity.
Mm.
And the training really serves to sort of do a 360 of it, and really kind of understand that there are multiple sort of experiences and identities and things that go into sex, that when we treat sort of addiction, we need to consider, we need to be very aware and fluent of, and be very conscious of how our own identities are impacting a relationship in the room. How do we treat what comes up internally for us, internally for a client, so it's pretty neat. We actually do a lot of other addictions too. We look at gambling, we look at spending, we look at eating and food addictions. So I think it's a very valuable process, and I'm grateful for the experience, and it's neat
Yeah.
to have 4 letters after your name. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Now, um, and not to mention, I mean, you get to learn from, like you said, the Godfather and I think Scott threw out Ken Adams was
Yeah.
was part of that as well. Like that's
It's cool. Yeah, we hang with Ken Adams, we hang with Patrick Carnes and Deb Kaplan, and all sorts of really talented clinicians. It's so neat to, to meet some of the pioneers of the field, like
yeah.
Ken or Patrick, and some of the new folks that are coming in. It's just the inner therapist fanboy in me just gets super excited to be like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. So you're Kevin Skinner, right? I can dig you. Like you're neat, and and I like your style. So it's a cool community, man, and I'm happy to be a part of it and serve the community, serve my clients. And I feel like, you don't necessarily need to be a certified sex addiction therapist to do this work,
Sure.
but I think it makes you a fuller bodied sort of
Sure.
person doing this work, and that's important. It's important to have the training and expertise involved. Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's it's such a that's a really good segue into kind of like my first topic that I wanted to bring up to you, and speaking about Dr. Ken Adams, and right now I'm reading this book called When He's Married to Mom, and I think I shared this in the last solo episode that I did, but I think he shares in there that 40% of male sex addicts are mother enmeshed men, and I'm really seeing how my mother enmeshment has really played out in my life. So I definitely kind of want to touch on kind of enmeshment and addiction, and what guys can look for as far as if they have questions like, Am I a mother enmeshed man?" and kind of what does that look like for them, and yeah, just I'm really interested in that topic and kind of like some of the work that needs to be done around that for sure.
Yeah, that's a big topic, man. Enmeshment is um, a complicated one. It brings with it a whole host of challenges for guys in regards to navigating the primary relationship in their life. And that primary relationship is typically with the caregiver mom, and a lot of mom stuff ends up sort of dripping down into that relationship and connecting with the kid as he grows up. And so I define enmeshment as this relationship that becomes less of a parent and child sort of experience and more of a parent and parent sort of feel, so men will grow up from their boyhoods to sort of well, as they age, even before that, before they become adults even, um, they grow up and or before they grow up, um, they become sort of the dad in the relationship, like mom's getting these needs met from the son. Son could be very young in this, but she's getting needs met from the kid that the kid is just incapable of essentially meeting or understanding. And so typically in these types of relationships, there's a high degree of emotionality in these. Like mom's emotions come to characterize the kid's emotions. So let's say mom is very anxious mother, like very kind of hyper vigilant. You might think of this as like a helicopter mom. And so that sort of hyper vigilance of the kid gets sort of translated. And so, like, kid will have probably a lot of different reactions to it. He'll see that as like, ooh, I want to push away, but then that activates mom even more. So I have to be responsible for mom's emotional regulation. I have to be the adult here. And so when that kid assumes that role that is so much different and so much bigger than what normally kids do, that gives responsibility that's outside that kid's comprehension. It gives an emotional regulation point that's so much bigger than that kid. So now repeat that on loop over and over and over and over and over in childhood, and now you have this very ingrained, like, this sort of relationship where mom is seeing kid, like, kid's natural and in tendency is to try to go and explore the world, but this has to happen in order to do that. So mom's saying like, hey, I'm scared of that, I'm fearful of that. Well, she's going to hold on tighter, and that's going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of people, not just boys or men, but women also loop themselves into this too. Maybe mom or dad serves that enmeshment point as well. But in attachment is this thing that all human beings need to do. We all need to attach to a caregiver. We get our safety needs met that way. We get our nourishment needs that way, but we get our psychological and emotional needs that way. And it's sort of like this feedback loop. And in healthy attachments, there's that feedback loop where the parent can attune to that child's needs and understand that the kid might not have the language yet to express how he feels or what's going on internally for him, but the parent can just see it, hone on to the body language of that kid, or understand what's going on emotionally based on that kid's face. They attune to it, they respond to it with compassion and nurturing and understanding, and then that encourages the kid to explore his world more and more. Now, in a mother enmeshed relationship, that exploration is actually discouraged. It's not a safe thing for not necessarily the kid, but for mom. Mom's scared of what will happen if that kid starts to explore the world. So there's that shearing that happens. It's like, oh, I want to go and know more about myself and other people, but mom's really hanging on. Mom really needs me for those needs. So what do I do? What do I start to think about myself? So enmeshed people, enmeshed men in particular, are carrying a lot of negative cognitions that they've used to rationalize the sort of pain of this shearing that happens. To think mama's boy, right? That's a really common one in our society. And what kind of negative stigmas attached to that? That's not fun. So do I rebel against that? Well, what if I do want a genuine relationship with my mom and I'm getting that label? Well, what does that mean about me? Am I weak? Am I not a man for that? So there's a lot of cognitive hula hoops that sort of guys like that have to jump through. And I hope that sort of portrays kind of like what that enmeshment feeling is like. It's kind of like I'm stuck with this desire to explore. I have these needs that I can't get met, but what do I do with mom's stuff? I'm holding on to my stuff and now mom's stuff, and now all that stuff is getting mixed together. So what's my stuff in this? What's her stuff in this? It's a confusing experience, you know.
100%. Like, and I know that there's like guilt involved in that. And definitely, like, looking back at my experience in my childhood, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I know that from what I've read, it seems like this enmeshment, it can form it can form with a lot of different circumstances, but a lot of times it almost seems like the father is emotionally distant. The father is either one, not in the household at all. Two, just as you guys like to say, like out to lunch. And so he's not attuning to his partner's needs, right? So now the mom, she's not getting her needs met. So now she's got this child, and then she says, okay, well, I've heard, they use the terms of like, well, your mom's little helper, your mom's big man, or the dad leaves, the dad goes on a work trip, and he's like, take care of your mom. You're the man of the house.
A man of the house is a big one. That or the reversed experience of that is your daddy's little girl. Your daddy's little girl, you're pretty, you're this and that for dad, when dad's seeking to get those needs met when mom's out to lunch or mom's not present, But you're hitting the nail on the head, man, and what you're saying is there is this sort of replacement that happens, and whether it's conscious or unconscious, right? Moms aren't necessarily meaning to do harm, but
Right.
they've taught themselves in a way that I need to get these needs met. My partner, who is responsible for meeting those needs, is completely out to lunch or isn't present to meet those needs. But I have a son here who's attuned to me, that can hear me. And it's not necessarily like the kid has a choice in that, right? Like
Right.
some mother enmeshed fellas that I've worked with, they've just sat in the room while mom cried for hours. What are their nervous systems taking in around that? Like, how do you cope with that? And how do you talk to an adult who may be really emotionally dysregulated, tearful, maybe even hysterical around some points? Now, you carry that forward 20 years, and you're seeing your partner, your current maybe partner or wife, in those same situations. It's going to feel like this again. It's going to feel like my partner feels like my mom, and my mom's emotional neediness, and I am going to just get out of there. I don't want to be present to that. And so what happens is, maybe that fella, the enmeshed person, finds addiction. Maybe that's the escape, not from the internal sensation of that. Maybe there is some internal sensation to that, but there's this, I need to break away, and I need to go satisfy my own needs because mom couldn't meet my needs because I was so busy with mom stuff. And so when I return to my partner and this starts to feel like that again, it just gets constricting. It gets like, I can't be so responsible for meeting those needs because that's the same stuff in childhood form. And it's confusing, it's frustrating, it's guilt ridden. You said that word, man. Like, there's a huge guilt component, because if you say, mom, like as a kid, I can't handle your stuff right now, mom throws a fit or mom gets upset, or now what happens to you is like, well, I have this feeling of guilt. I just hurt mom, like dad's hurting mom, or I just hurt mom, like whoever's hurting mom is. So now I have to, sit here again. I got to be present to this again. And now I got to shelve my own stuff. I can't go out and explore the world. I can't form my own identity outside of my mother. And it's a very frustrating experience. It's a very trauma laden experience. Like I said, you rationalize that process by saying what to yourself? I have no autonomy. If I choose to do something, I'm going to get in trouble. If I stay, I'm uncomfortable and I don't get hurt. So it's like this double whammy, double-edged sword of kind of emotional neglect in a way. You're not getting your emotional needs met, but then you're getting bombarded with just this stream of highly intense, very adult stuff. It's a powerful point that I don't want us to miss here, man. You had a great insight there. Is like, when dad's not there, right? What happens? Well, maybe dad's got his own addiction. Maybe dad actually has a sex addiction in of himself. So if dad's out there in his own world, occupying his own needs, you're stuck. But then you're getting all that information from dad's behaviors. Okay, so dad, when mom gets emotional, bails. And now I've been stuck so long in this. Now I got to bail. But typically you can't bail on mom. So in a 20-year relationship, right, in a mother mesh man with his wife, right, I would rather defend mom and protect mom to the detriment of my partner, whose needs I feel are suffocating me. So that's why you see a lot of guys who say that their wives or their partners are tired of feeling like their mom, that mom feel. And then when mom is like very critical of wife in this, right? She's no good. She's not good enough for you. No woman's ever going to be good enough for you. The wife is taking that in and be like, you're not defending me. Like, this isn't true. I'm your wife here, and you're not going to protect me from your mom. Well, he can't. He's going to dysregulate mom's stuff. So it's a very powerful topic, and there's a lot of healing available for guys like that, but it's sort of a specialized healing. Ken's got a lot of good work out there about that, and I really recommend his workshops too. I've had a lot of guys go through that and have really come back with a lot of good positive change in their life.
That's definitely something that I want to look into, because the more that I've been very aware of this book. I think one of the first times I ever went to the CSAT that I was seeing right out of BAI, and he told me about this book. And it wasn't until, almost 2 years later that I finally started to read it. And, I'm grace and compassion for myself. I wasn't necessarily in the place to really take that information in. And now I am, and I'm really seeing it. And what's really cool about it is, like, my sponsor is also also dealing with the same things. So a lot of our conversations revolve around, he read the book too. And so a lot of our conversations revolve around kind of like our mother enmeshment, and kind of like just what goes into that, and seeing it for what it is. And you touched on, if dad is there, but dad's not there. I mean, I think that all goes back to, like, as a child, we're looking at their relationship as the model for our relationships.
Good point, brother.
Like, just from my personal experience, there wasn't much affection, there wasn't much love. I don't necessarily want to say there wasn't any love, but there really wasn't any affection. And so I didn't think that. And then if I look at my relationships later in life, I had a problem with affection.
Mm.
I had a problem with affection and being lovey-dovey. And it's funny, in this book, when he's married to mom, they talk about when a mother enmeshment gets into a relationship. When he first gets into that relationship, like, he is everything. He is doing everything. He's doing the little things and the romantic things, and then it gets to a point where he starts resenting his partner, because now it starts feeling like his mom. And I think that reminds me of the cold box hot box model that we were taught at BAI, and how we basically take that stencil, lay it over our lives, and try to recreate that cycle and that system. And then it eventually falls apart, because it is not a sustainable system for a healthy relationship.
Yep. Now you're cooking with gas, man. That's the insight there. Like, when we carry these blueprints and we graft them right onto every relationship we have. It's what we were attuned to. It's what our nervous systems got used to. It's what our temperature was sort of set at, right? Um, to take that example we were sort of talking about a few minutes ago, if dad was not present in the household and he is getting away from his partner's emotions, and we grow up with that archetype, guess who we're starting to feel like more and more? Is we're becoming more like dad. We leave our primary attachment, we leave our wives, or we leave our partners, and we go out and satisfy our needs in that, only to return. Maybe that husband 2.0 comes in, he starts doing all those small things again, trying to satisfy his guilt or his shame, or placate, or whatever's going on in there, until that wears off. And then suddenly it's like, well, I'm getting blasted again here with the emotions and the hurts and the pain, so let me just do what I've always done. So eventually we just become the attachments that we've experienced over time. Enmeshment has a real big sort of impact in that, because you grow up resenting maybe mom being so attached to you, so any of that attachment that feels like that, you start to resent. Maybe your partner is genuine in their expression, but needs you to own if you've been acting out and causing pain and betrayal, but you're not able to sit with that feeling, and that's an uncomfortable thing. Maybe you see her needs in the moment as something burdensome, and that's a heavy weight to carry, because you were unable to carry mom's weight, right? And so you're seeking ways of offloading this that are not intimate, because you never could be. It was always so much more about, say, mom's or dad's emotions. There was no room for yours.
Yeah. Yeah. What really hit me there when you were talking about all of that was, like, a feeling like a failure. So,
Ooh.
like not necessarily, and this is all I'm it's funny as we're talking about this, like I'm literally like going through my past relationship being like, oh my gosh. And this is all stuff that I've thought about in the past, but like not knowing, it's not even the guilt around like the porn and masturbation and acting out in the relationship. It was the guilt of feeling like I failed my partner, that I
Mm,
could not attune to their needs.
mm,
And then I not being able to express that because, oh, this person's not going to understand. If I tell this person what I'm doing, they're going to run for the hills. So, and then just always feeling like I am not enough here because I know inside that there is something going on that I cannot attune to my partner's needs. And so now I feel like a failure, which then kicks me into that shame and guilt cycle and spirals down.
yeah, you're right
Yeah,
on.
it's a
Mhm.
really interesting dot that I just connected there. It's really interesting, and I can totally see that. So say like, because you hear this quite a bit, like, oh, you're gonna marry somebody like your mom, which feels, not obviously this is not any of this is not from a sexual side, right? Like a mother enmeshed man does not mean that I want to be intimate physically with my mother, right? So they say, oh, you're gonna marry somebody like your mom, or you marry somebody like, oh, you're just like your mom. And to me, that makes me kind of cringe a little bit, solely for the fact of like, I am trying to break that cycle of that mother enmeshment. And so trying to find a partner that is not so much like my mom. Does that make any sense at all?
It does, brother. It really does. And, let's be kind of like reality based, like it's not like you are looking for qualities that sort of completely deny the goodness of mom,
Sure.
essentially, right?
Sure.
Like anybody will be like, hey, my mom is nurturing, I would want that in a partner.
Hmm.
Or, my mom was attentive and considerate and empathic, right? You're not rejecting all those qualities, but we look for patterns in relationships, and we are used to, our nervous system sort of recognizes that what it is used to. And so if it's used to those sort of patterns in an intimate relationship or in an attachment relationship, it feels natural. Not good, right? Not a good or a bad there, but it feels like a natural way that two pieces of puzzle intersect. And so when that enmeshment starts to come up, your nervous system, if you haven't healed it, if you haven't done your trauma work or come to a deeper understanding about it, you're likely to find a partner that just intersects into that. Maybe even unconsciously. Maybe you're not really searching out mom and saying like, hey, this person looks like my mom, feels like my mom. This is a romantic thing here. No, it's that person's nervous system highly resembles the way that your mother's nervous system interacted with yours. And so it's just puzzle piece to puzzle piece. And
Yeah.
now you have a recipe for a byproduct of the relationship that you had as a kid. And
Mm.
that is very hard. And it's just now that you're married to mom, or your wife treats you like your mom, that's such a negative label in our society.
Mm.
Like that is one that men in particular hate. It's like, what do you mean I'm married to my mom? That's messed up. I ain't
Mhm.
about that, like Oedipus stuff. What the heck, right?
Right.
They're not about that, but there's a stigma, there's a shame to it. And that shame is just the same level of shame that they experienced as kids. They don't want to be mama's boy. They didn't want to be in that, but they had to. What choice did they have?
Mm.
The attachment to mom is a survival relationship. There's a survival component to it. So their nervous systems are seeing that as part of a relationship that on the surface fits, it connects, it provides, but it doesn't satisfy the intimacy that we're all deserving of or want to experience. So inevitably, guys are going to seek out an intimacy that is within their control, that does not feel, say, like mom stuff, but there's an intensity to it, right? That's why this acting out will bring this highly intense experience, where a lot of guys say that's the intensity that equals intimacy, but that's not a true intimacy. That's when we're engineering for ourselves to deal with this enmeshed feeling we have. We're just simply engineering solutions that may not have their origins in what we think they are. We're just trying to find a solution that allows us to protect our vulnerabilities, on the surface there, air quotes for people listening, protect the vulnerabilities. But we're looking for something that is under our control, that if people really knew us and saw into us, we're deathly afraid of that as addicts. Like, oh my gosh, that's a terrifying experience. So if I have this relationship over here that my addiction is sort of in charge of, then it makes going back into this relationship easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And for the, so I guess in all of that, I think what I'm getting out of this is like because there's fear inside of me, and I'm sure there's fear inside of other people out there that, like, I don't want to keep going back into the same relationships and repeating these same cycles over and over and over. And in recovery, I think that we learn to break those cycles. We learn to listen to our guts a little bit more, to where if I do meet somebody, or, somebody out there does meet somebody that doesn't feel right, I am in a better position to listen to myself and go, this isn't right. I need to pull out.
Yeah.
Instead of giving into it like I've done in all these times in the past, just giving into it because of the awareness that I have now. And also too, all of this mom talk, this mother enmeshment, I think correct me if I'm wrong, kind of almost happens at a very subconscious level, right? Like, I'm not sitting here bashing moms. I'm not saying that, you touched on this earlier, like, they're not doing this on purpose. And I just want to say that out loud to anybody listening. Like, while I believe that I am a mother enmeshed man, by no means do I think that my mom did any of that on purpose. And that, I'm not going to go home and yell at her for that, or there's some resentments there. There's some anger there for sure around it. However, it's stuff that I can work through.
Sure. And trusting yourself to work through that. There's definitely going to be resentment, anger, sadness to that, because parts of our identity got co-opted by mom, who's not going to necessarily have some feelings about that. But we haven't necessarily trusted ourselves to have the awareness into, am I in a relationship that's fulfilling or not? Am I secure in myself to accept that I have gotten into a relationship that is not fulfilling for me? Can I trust myself to make the decision to maybe exit this relationship and be on my own, and not sort of receive the safety, security thing that partner represents? Remember, attachment is a safety and security thing. So a lot of mesh guys will see mom as safe, secure, right? That's where my home base is. But then that gets translated onto a partner down the road. And then that guy is left saying, like, she's my safety, she's my security, but I'm not feeling that fulfillment. I'm not feeling that sort of internal sense of that reciprocal intimacy. And so guys will get into that, I'm scared to leave. That fear comes up, like you were talking about, like, I'm scared to leave this relationship because I'm not necessarily used to exploring the world. And now we just built that sort of 360, right? that kid was not encouraged to go explore by himself. That world is not a safe place, but within the circle of that relationship, the mother enmeshment, it is a safe place. So that's why it's hard for fellas who are enmeshed to be by themselves. They might be seeking relationship after relationship after relationship, asking themselves, what's wrong with me? Why do I get into these relationships that I might not be really fulfilled by or like or want to be in? It's because there's safety in that. And we're taught that. Our nervous systems remember, the comfort of being next to mom.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man. That makes so much sense. Just looking at my life, and I'm sure a lot of guys out there looking at their lives. I mean, you can see the patterns. They're clear as day. When you shine light on things, things really make sense.
That's the
And I think
beauty
that
of recovery, man. That's the beauty.
absolutely, absolutely, and seeing it. And now then it comes to like, okay, I'm seeing this, but what the heck am I supposed to do with it? Like, and I know that for me, I've definitely struggled with that because I feel like I'm very self-aware. I see these things clear as day, and I know why I do things, and I see these things, but then oftentimes I can get very frustrated with, okay, well, what the heck am I supposed to do with this now? Like, and I understand that part of recovery, part of that is the awareness. Because before I didn't have the awareness. Sure, maybe things felt off, or I was afraid to leave relationships. I wanted to stay because it felt safe. However, I was still looking for the next thing to jump ship, so I had a safety net to fall to.
Security.
The security, yeah. So now it's like, okay, and I get that, and sometimes that's the answer for me is like, well, you're aware of it. And I'll be honest though, sometimes I don't like that answer, Nate. I don't like that answer. And that's a very addict mind of me for sure, right? Like I want to find the problem. I want to see the problem. I want to go down, I want to find it, and I want to fix it right then and there.
Yep, I get you, right? You don't have to like the answer, you just have to learn to accept,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That acceptance can go a long way in informing the decisions that you have to make to live the life you want to live and to find the relationships that you really want to cultivate and to be a part of. I have a lot of guys here call these Nate Nuggets of Wisdoms or Nate Nugs for short. So
Love
here's
it.
the Nate Nug for
Nate
everybody.
Nug, all right.
I really believe in awareness breeds this concept of choice, right? When I have an awareness over to what has formed within me because of my trauma or my relationships or my past experiences, that awareness informs, or fuels better choices. When we're in addiction, we are totally disconnected from our bodies, our hearts, our minds, even soul in some cases. So we don't have a lot of awareness. So are our choices in addiction rooted in logic or emotions? Or no, it's none of that. It's we're responding, we're acting out internal discomfort and trying to seek that soothing that we've always had. But when we are aware of what's going on, when we contact those spaces in our bodies, our minds, and our souls or our brains, we know what's going on. We can attune to our bodies. We can attune to the moment. We finally have the gift of choice. When we can make those choices and trust in our power to make those choices, we can start doing the healing work that is promised to us in recovery. Recovery is a game of choice, and what choice you want to make defines how you play that game. Now, in enmeshment, there's a choice to make. I need to choose and trust that this world that I'm inhabiting here, it will hurt me sometimes. That's okay. The world will hurt us sometimes, and we just have to greet that pain and be okay with it. And other times that world will offer us gifts and fun and connection and love. But if we are so stuck with not seeing our choices to leave into an unfamiliar world, we're going to be stuck in what's familiar. And now familiar can be uncomfortable, but we get used to it.
Yeah.
And when we can no longer get used to it, then we try to seek out something different. But if we're not got the choice, we're just going to return to the addiction every single time. Every time. So I help guys break that up, right? Yes, the world is a scary place sometimes. It is also a world of true adventure, true freedom, true, fill in the blank for what you're looking for in the world. But you have to be willing to risk being hurt. You have to use the power of choice to make those steps necessary. That's what recovery is all about. That's the good stuff there.
Yeah. So stepping out of the familiar.
And
Stepping
that's
out.
what enmeshment is. It's the familiarity that we as kids learn to be comfortable with.
Yeah.
And you know how we get comfortable with that is we usually go into dorsal, like we numb out to it. And then all that energy gets stuck in our bodies, right? The whole time we're numbing out to that sort of uncomfortable emotional neglect or invalidation or what have you coming from mom. Well, where's that energy getting put towards? It's getting stuck in your body. The longer that energy stays stuck in your body and unprocessed, the harder it is to break this cycle.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's just it's such good stuff. It's such good work. It's heavy work. But I know once I started digging into it, it made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense for me. And another just really good segue into my next topic that is definitely tied into this is like that confidence. Talking about using not being able to pull away from mom. I know that Dr. Ken Adams talks about his book. He uses this term individuation. There is
Say that one, say that one 5 times fast.
You saw me. I had to think about it for
I
a minute.
know.
Like,
I was
okay,
like,
how do
let's see if he takes the challenge. I'm not gonna take it.
But yeah, that individuation, and I'm working on this, but it's like, for the longest time in my life, 30 years, I didn't know where I started and where I ended.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I didn't know what I really liked, what I didn't like. And I'm kind of figuring all of that out now, but without that individuation, I think that there's a lack of confidence. The lack of confidence because I don't know who I am.
Right.
Or I don't fully know who I am. And so if I don't fully know who I am, how can I have any kind of real, authentic confidence in myself?
That's a big question to ponder, brother.
That's
I feel that in my body. Like there's been moments in my life, man, where I struggled with confidence, and I think to some of my traumas where it wasn't safe necessarily to bring my whole authentic self to that person and be vulnerable around that. I think our vulnerabilities breed confidence in ourselves. Like when we are confident and being able to share and go into any situation and accept what may happen, right? Our defenses relax, and as a result, we relax too. We can be more natural in our environment. We can be more fluid with how we're talking or how we're behaving, and not necessarily go so much energy on what other people are thinking about us. It's a very trauma-laden response when we are constantly analyzing everybody in the room and wondering how they think about me. Am I going to get approved of by this person? What do I need to do to be approved of? Am I going to like the things that they're going to like? What if I don't like that, right? What if I don't dig that sort of thing that these kids are talking about? Well, then the doomsday sort of clock in our head starts to play and says, you know what, if you don't like this new trend, then you're going to be abandoned. You're going to be rejected. They're going to make fun of you. So just say you like it. Just sacrifice that and you'll be accepted. But then we're on that back foot. Our confidence in ourselves is gone because we don't know who we are. We don't know that part of ourselves because we just made it up. So if we keep making up stories about ourselves, we start to try to believe it, but then there's always that piece of us that says, you know what, you're not who that is. That's going to shoot your confidence in the foot. And so there are some parallels to this that do apply to enmeshment, at least in my eyes, right? If you are discouraged from exploring the world by, say, mom, whose job it is to nurture you and then push you back into the world, well, then you don't get a whole lot of experience in it. Your nervous system's not used to that. So you're going to have heightened experience, like internal experiences that are anxious or fearful. So you are working double time just to try to be regulated in unfamiliar situations because you're just not used to it.
Yeah.
Now, if your pattern is to just go with the flow and say what people like to hear, that's a way of soothing that internal discomfort, but then you're just inauthentic. Now, what happens if you get called out for that, right? Maybe a kid on the playground's like, you know what? You didn't see that latest episode of Pokemon, did you? You don't even know what a Pikachu is, do you? Now you're panicking. Oh my gosh, they know. How did they know? How did they know that I don't know this show? And so now you're having this ridiculing trauma that if you were to accept, like you didn't know what you're talking about, you're looking worse. So you double down, you go more into that trauma response. And then where's your confidence go? Now I'm rooted in shame.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to do with confidence, but what I have found what's really helped me with my confidence was I was a very, very withdrawn kid growing up. I was very sort of dorsally numb, a lot of feelings of rejection, self-rejection. I just didn't feel comfortable in my own skin, and I did a lot of what I just described. I would just go with the flow, and if I'm accepted and I have to sacrifice my parts of me to do it, it's better to be accepted than left by myself, and then where's my confidence? But what helped me in the long run was learning to love myself, and that is what really changed the game for me. Like, I see a lot of guys let's revise it. I just see society in general trying to say, like, you have to be, the macho man, the smooth talker, the wine and dine guy. You gotta be got your shit together. You gotta make six figures. You all these things you gotta do. But is love in there? Is like, our society is not telling us to love you for who you are. It wants us to change ourselves to fit the mold that society is trying to sell us. You notice all those things I mentioned out there have capitalism sort of tied to it. It makes sense, right? There's a dollar sign component to it, but is love sellable? Is self-love sellable, right? Is society going to latch onto that and be able to market it? Yeah, maybe. I kind of cringe to see it, but
yeah, that's a good point.
I think that when I started to self-love myself and accept myself for just who I am as a person, then other people's opinions of me had no bearing because I was not looking for an external source of love to fit that part of me that wasn't necessarily there. But I learned to put that there and experience that and just share that with the people that also love themselves. And suddenly, man, I can talk to strangers. I can talk to a lot of different strangers about a lot of different things, and be confident in who I am around that, because I love myself, because I did the work around understanding why I couldn't love myself. Um, I really believe, man, a philosophy of mine is that there's just not enough love in the world.
Mm.
And we need to start to give that back to ourselves, because that's one of the things that addiction robs from us.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction steals our capacity to love. And we look for external sources to try to fit that missing part.
Yep. Mm.
All you need is love, brother.
That's it. I mean, that's really it. And I want to go back. There's something that you shared there that I just wanted to just honor the perspective around, like, you know, I can't shapeshift when I'm being authentic, when I'm being vulnerable.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Like, and when you said it, it just like really hit me. Because I've definitely been that guy, the shapeshifter, oh, hey, you like this? Oh, so do I, even though I might not know what you're talking about. I might have no idea. But I
Like,
found
it's like a Led Zeppelin. Yeah, I totally like that dude, like great piano lyrics in that one, eh?
yeah, right.
His raps are great.
They sing that one song, I'm Blue, right? Yeah, great song. I love that song. um, but yeah, you know, in thinking about my life today in those vulnerable relationships that I have, I don't shapeshift.
Yeah, there's no need to.
There's no need to, and that I've found that in those relationships, things can be told to me that I don't necessarily agree with, whereas in another part of my life, if I don't disagree with it, I might still jump on board with it. But when I'm being vulnerable with somebody and then I come across a disagreement, I'm able to stand on what I believe in and to not shapeshift.
No, and
And
it
so I
doesn't
really appreciate that perspective.
and it doesn't matter so much. We're not seeing it as this catastrophe if another person doesn't, jive
Mm-hmm.
with how we're presenting our values, or what we're talking about, or our likes or interests, or anything like that, right? We're not seeing it as a rejection, but we're just seeing it as like, hey, this person doesn't dig what I'm into. Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
I have learned to seek out my sources of worth and value internally. And that allows me to more confidently connect to others. And I don't have to be everything to everybody else just to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge thing in confidence. We so desperately want to be accepted by people around us, to get closer to them, to feel loved by them, to find safety and security in the group. But um, we grow up thinking that that's not possible. So our confidence gets shot, and what gets replaced by that are negative cognitions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worthless, I'm no good, I'm just scenery, like nobody sees me, so I have no value here. And then we find acting out behaviors that sort of give us the pseudo version of it, the closest thing that we could feel to being confident. Like, I've talked to a lot of guys who present as very not confident individuals, but their acting out template doesn't seem to fit it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you mean you're doing those things when you struggle to have conversations outside of your social anxiety? That doesn't make sense. But it's our addiction convinces us that it is useful. It is a valuable tool for us to seek out the next best thing around relationships. But that deprives us of true intimacy, but then it reinforces our lack of confidence. We're just stuck in limbo. And addiction is this ruthless cycle that is like, you're so scared of being hurt and being vulnerable, so package it up, man. Don't sweat it. It's all good. I got you. Get in the Ferrari. We're gonna peel out. of the neighborhood. It's just vicious, and that's not how human beings are meant to interrelate. We're meant to connect and be vulnerable and be in groups. And there's extroverts and introverts in every single group. They're valuable parts. They're valuable parts to any of that. But enmeshment is hard because it just saps that confidence. It just saps it, because it's like the external world is a scary place. The familiar one is safe. So let me hang with the familiar world, and I don't have to risk the hurts that were outside of this relationship.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just like taking it in. It's so funny. Whenever I get into these places, I kind of go silent and I feel bad. But at the same time, I know that like I'm just kind of like soaking it in, and it's okay for me to do that. Because this is all really good stuff. This is all really good stuff to think about, and it's almost like you want to find confidence, find those vulnerable relationships.
Yeah. And if you want confidence, develop your capacity for self-love. I think you have to love yourself before you can exude your confidence. It's not about like, oh, just, tune out everybody around you and have this swagger, which is a very common archetype in society of maleness, like you got to be svelte and well dressed and buff and have all those things put together for you to exude this confidence. And that's not true. It's when you love yourself, you can be in any room and just be like dynamite to somebody, and you don't have to perform for that. You can just be. And if you're just feeling like, hey, I'm just being me right now, and I'm cool with just being quiet, I don't feel this dire urge to try to prove myself to get these relationships or get this affirmation or get this attention, right? I can just be myself at any given day and be cool with it. It's a gift. Self-love is a gift, and it's the first thing that usually goes in addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. So now talking about self-love, and somebody wants to find that self-love. Now, how important is it to love the messiness of ourselves, right? Like, because when I think of self-love, it's very black and white. It's self-love means I love all of my positive characteristics, but I don't love the negative characteristics or but is self-love an all-encompassing thing? Is that something where we have to love the good and the bad in order to fully accept and love ourselves?
Great question, man. That's a good one. That's one to ponder there. That I feel like it's necessary that we love all parts of ourselves. We can be upset with ourselves. We can have parts of us that are at war with one another, and that's okay. We got to work through it and accept the mess of it all. But our love, our ability to love ourselves is not determinate on our imperfections. Our imperfections do not define us. We love ourselves through our imperfections. We accept ourselves through our imperfections. The mess inside of us does not define the internal goodness that every human being can represent for themselves. I get that it's hard to accept a mess, right? It's like, I do not want to see this. I don't want to acknowledge that I had a hand in creating this mess, like that's something that we got to work on and through therapy, but underneath that mess is a real human being that is just thriving and with a heart that's beating, and so your behaviors do not define who you are. we have to accept that our behaviors, if we're in an addiction, have maybe caused betrayal, they've caused chaos in one's life. We got to do the work of picking up those pieces and helping those that we've hurt. That's necessary. But we are good men who have done bad things. Our bad things do not get to say that we're bad men, right? The same, I think, holds true for our abilities to love ourselves. My bad behaviors that have hurt people do not get to destroy my self-love. Yeah, I can be pretty upset by that, totally, right? But I feel like all emotions sort of spring forward from that spot of love. My anger, my sadness, my grief, my all of it comes from this nugget, this center of love and compassion.
A lot of acceptance in that.
Yeah,
Like a lot of accepting those bad parts, accepting the negative.
Yep. The I'll probably butcher this quote here, but there's a meditation that I really like. It's called Leaves on a Stream. Highly recommend it to anybody who's listening. It's great for working through thoughts. But you just said something that sort of provoked this quote to come out here. It's by accepting our thoughts, accepting ourselves, we actually gain mastery over it. It is through us trying to reject parts of ourselves, reject our thoughts, reject ourselves in a lot of ways that we are constantly in this root of suffering. It's like, that's not part of me. I don't want it to be, right? I'm trying to distance myself more and more and more from that, but I am just prolonging my suffering, my pain at that. I can't exercise that out of me. I have to accept that this is a part of me. And through that acceptance, we gain understanding, wisdom, mastery over that. And ACT is where that meditation springs from. It is great for working through thoughts and over identifying and fused with thoughts. It was one of the things that really jump-started my therapy, and I highly recommend it. It's a 10-minute meditation on any sort of meditative app or YouTube or anything like that.
Yeah, you brought up a good point there, and it's something that I've been trying to practice a lot of. I know in the past, it's like, say I have just like a really bad thought, and I will almost shame myself. I'll be like, stop. What are you stop? What are you doing? No, stop. And instead of, now I'm trying to flip it on its head and just be like, you're not your thoughts. Your thoughts are just they're just thoughts. They're just thoughts, and it's much easier that I'm giving myself compassion and grace there for just my thoughts are my thoughts. They pop up, they come and go, and not to be so shaming. I don't have to get down on myself when I have a bad thought, because it's not like it was my idea to come up with that thought. Now, I know that it's my choice to jump in the boat with those thoughts. And okay, so that thought pops up. Am I going to jump in the boat with it and entertain it and stew on it? Or am I just going to accept it for what it is, and it's just a thought and I'm a human being, and that's what happens?
Yeah. And then when we accept, it finally lets go. Right. It finally lets go, and we can be content, or we can find peace, or maybe even just get that 8 hours of sleep. We don't have to ruminate at night with this anxiousness, or what am I going to do feeling, or am I doing enough? Right. It's so interesting, man, that shame comes in as a tool for you. I've been talking about shame a lot lately. Shame is a tool that we use to distance ourselves from the experiences that we're having. We encapsulate ourselves in this shameful mess so that we don't have to feel what it's like to have to own something.
Mm.
We can just say that, hey, I'm a bad person and be done with it. I don't have to feel the guilt, the pain, the hurt that I've caused in another individual if I say those things. Shame is a tool that disconnects us. It's also a tool that is completely useless. It is a useless thing. Like, shame is a lie that we're telling ourselves to protect that hurt part of us. It's a tool that is useless because there are better tools out there that allow us to live more free. That does not have to define the wholeness of us. We can simply accept, just like what we're talking about, our feelings in the moment and let them go as they sort of recede back from whence they came.
Yeah. Now, does shame, when somebody shames themselves, does that lead to put them into like a victim mindset?
Ooh, yeah.
Because
I would.
I've really seen lately that, like, I've been playing the victim.
Mhm.
And and it's nothing new to me. But like, I sometimes, like, I like playing the victim because it creates that separation from anything that I'm doing or anything bad that I want to do. It justifies that
Mhm.
in a sense of like, well, if I'm just over here wallowing and I'm a victim, so therefore I have every right to go and either treat somebody like crap or go out and take part in, acting out behaviors or things of that nature. Like, I've really noticed that lately, that victim mindset, and how much, like, as much as I don't like being there, I do like being there.
I get you, man. I was a victim extraordinaire. Like, I took college level classes in victimhood, man, like, for real. It was a real powerful defense of mine, and I'll
Mhm.
illustrate that right now. So, Panda, when you say, hey, I'm no good, I'm bad, right? And I'm a compassionate person for you, guess what I have to do? I have to soothe you now. So, Panda, you're a great man, dude. Like, you're fine, right? Like, everything's okay. You know what? We love you. We care about you. But then if you do not relinquish that victim role, then I have to double up. I have to continuously meet you there to try to help you disprove it. So there's this, I can attract that validation. I can attract
Mm.
that. And that's why it's so powerful in relationships in particular. It's a deflection tool, just like you were saying, but it's also this, I can go fishing
Mm.
for people. I can go get that validation. I can go get that assurance because I'm playing this role where somebody has to take care of the victim.
Mm.
Now, if we throw betrayal into the mix, right? It's basically you are removing that blame and responsibility for the betrayal, and you have a immediate problem solver for your accountability for that person in betrayal. Like, if your actions hurt that person, well, I'm always this bad person, you deserve somebody better. You go leave me. That's what I deserve here. Just leave me. I'm always left. Nobody loves me. Right now, that person who has a legitimate hurt has to take care of you.
Mm.
They have to take care of you. And then if they have to take care of you, they have to shelve their hurt to meet you and bring you up from that. Now all the energy is redistributed. It's
Mm.
like super judo, like you just judoed that person out of their hurt and betrayal and cast it onto you as a moral defect. Now that person can't be real with you. That person can't be real with their hurts that maybe you've caused. And suddenly now they have to take care of you.
Mm.
That's why it's so I don't know if appetizing is the right word, but it's a very powerful and alluring tool or experience that sometimes we're conscious of, sometimes we're not, but it creates that dynamic, right?
Mm.
Now I'm off the hook because I'm so broken, right? I'm never going to get fixed. And then the next day comes, I'm good, right? Nothing happened. I didn't really mean it. Right? Let's keep moving. But then that person who is hurt is like, well, now I don't know what is real here. I don't know what's going on. I just know that I think I might have hurt that person, but they hurt me. So it's this very complex sort of psychological diffusion button. We diffuse the bomb that way. But we have to reel that in. We have to understand it as that is what's causing more hurt here. I can't do my job and my responsibility of helping somebody heal, maybe after betrayal, maybe after discovery, if I'm perpetually in the victim role. That's not actually keeping me safe. I'm actually hurting myself more and more, because if this person keeps crying wolf, saying that they're the victim, are people going to come to them in moments of true crisis, true hurt? They're less likely to see your bids at like, hey, I really need some help here, as valid or genuine or authentic. So you're sort of like, well, now all my stuff gets confirmed. I really am not loved. They're not coming to me when I really need them. And now I'm stuck. So victimhood really hurts. It hurts you, it hurts everyone, but that's not to shame anybody who's going through and using that as a label or an experience, right? But we have to care about those people more in those moments, to give them that tough love, that reality-based thinking, to help them break the cycle, break the walls of denial around it.
Yeah.
Then we have an opportunity for healing and growth.
You just blew my mind right there. Because I didn't see that side of it, and now I understand a little bit more why I like, because you're right. I play the victim, and I know that I'm going to get attention from that, and that if I, if I text somebody, if somebody texts me and they're like, "How you doing today?" In the program, and I play the victim, I'm going to get the sympathy, I'm going to get the pity, and oh, that feels good. But if I text them, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay," I don't get that same response from them.
Right.
So that just adds another layer as to my understanding of why I like to be in that spot. And holy shit, made sense.
My wife calls it, so my wife's from Brazil, and they have this phrase called biscoitos, and biscoitos is like cookies. And so whenever I get into that victim, sometimes it comes up and I don't catch it. She's like, "You're looking for cookies, aren't you? You're looking for biscoitos. You want some biscoitos, Nate?" And I'm like, "Oh, you got me with that." You want some cookies?
Yes, I do want some cookies,
I
please.
do want some cookies. Yeah. And she's like, "Okay, let's talk. What's going on?" But yeah, biscoitos. Biscoitos don't help. They don't help.
Biscoitos, no, they don't. They just feed the monster.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
They
There you go.
feed that monster and they fuel that monster. They
Mm-hmm.
stoke the fire. Oh my gosh. Wow.
That's why
Yeah.
it feels good in a way. Like, right, we kind of have that out of body experience of like, I'm not being genuine here, or I'm just fueling this fire. I see the spiraling going out, but it feels good because it
Yeah.
feels like we're getting that need met. We're getting that attention. We're getting that assurance in the moment. And then if we sort of just dial it even farther, we crank it to 11. Now we're getting a lot of people to come to us. We're getting a lot of that attention. And it feels kind of like good in a way. It feels sort of like this satisfying feeling, but then there's also, I imagine, at least for me, there's a part of me that's like, yo, you are totally dysregulated, man. Like you need to regulate yourself, or you are just going to keep spiraling out, and then you're really not going to be able to handle this. Yeah, we got to let go of victimhood. It's just not serving us. Shame's not serving us. Victimhood's not serving us. It's not letting us live in charge of our lives.
Yep.
You know, we have to be the adults in the room and in charge of our own lives.
Mm-hmm. It being in that victim mindset, that shame mindset, it for me, it takes me back to that familiarity
Mm-hmm.
of that uncomfortable situation, but I know that situation so well, and so I chose to stay there.
And then the cycle continues, right?
And then, yep, just full circle, goes and goes and goes.
Yeah, man.
Wow. Man, that's good stuff, Nate. Man, and here I was thinking that, afraid that we weren't going to have anything to talk about.
Hey, man, like, I think we like to talk, brother.
Oh, I know that I like to talk. Oh, I'm definitely
You're in the
seeing that
right
now.
field, man. You're in the right field.
I'm definitely seeing that I like to talk. So of course it makes sense that I started a podcast just so that I can talk. But then there's
Makes
times
sense
where I
why,
don't like to talk either, where I'm like, I don't want to talk.
yeah, it makes sense why I talk to people for a living. You know, like at least you get paid. You know, like at least there's a way to make some cash
Absolutely.
talking.
Absolutely. Well, Nate, man, I want to be respectful of your time, so we can I'm okay with, with ending things here if you're all right with that. And I had some other stuff to bring up, but hey, that just means I have to have you on again,
I'd be more than happy to, man.
which I'm okay with. So, man, Nate, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you taking some time to come on and talk to me, man. And what a really good conversation too. I got a lot out of this. So thank you so much for who you are and what you're doing, man. You're making a difference, and it's awesome.
I appreciate you saying that, man. Right back at you, man. Really.
Awesome. Well, this won't make it into the episode, but I'm still at mom's, but I am looking for houses.
Dude,
I actually went and saw one this afternoon. Went and looked at one
nice.
this afternoon. Basically, since I think it was September. Yeah, I'm been just constantly looking and viewing and
Good, man.
and trying to get out there and seeing it all.
Good, man. Be patient, like just be patient as long as you're making those waves, and you're doing right, right? You're not sitting stuck.
Nope.
There's always that movement, and that movement brings opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what's really cool about it too is like in this whole process of doing this, like at first I would get very discouraged because like I'd see a house and then I'd be like, and then 2 days later someone would have an offer and it'd be off the market, and I felt this sense of urgency. Whereas now I'm just like, okay, I'm taking the actions around this, and that's what's important for me right now, is making sure that I keep taking these actions, and the right house will come when the right house is supposed to come.
Yep. Just be patient, man. Like the universe has a way of aligning when we are seeking out that opportunity. And just because we are seeking out an opportunity and the universe does not align doesn't mean we stop. Like the universe will align when it's meant to happen.
Absolutely. So yeah, so I wanted to share that with you. So
That's awesome, man. Good work.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate
Good changes in your life, brother. Good changes.
I'm doing the best that I can with what I got. So, and it feels good. It does feel good.
Right on, man.
So awesome. Well, Nate,
keep the beard crispy, brother. It's looking good.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm trying. Still got the hair. It's up, but I'm trying to keep the beard nice and crisp because I don't want that homeless look.
Nice. That's what I was going on like last week.
Talking about beards, I feel really bad for guys that can't grow beards.
It's rough.
I feel so bad for them, man.
Yeah,
I feel so bad.
Say la vie, man. Some guys are tall, some guys have beards,
Hey, good point. Good point. Awesome. Well, Nate, Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it, man. I hope that everything's well for you out there, and dude, keep killing it in what you guys are doing out there, man. Keep
Will
killing it.
do. You too, man. You're doing good stuff.
Thanks, Nate. I really appreciate it, man. I'll shoot you an email when I'm getting ready to post this one, and I'm gonna try to come up with a good name for it. But
Awesome.
I think we got plenty of little nuggets in there to choose
Nate's
from.
Nugs, man.
Nate's
Nate's
Nugs, man. Nate's Nugs.
Nugs.
Awesome. Well, Nate, thanks again so much, man. I can't tell you how grateful I am for your support and you coming on.
Absolutely, man. You have a good Friday.
Thanks, brother. You too, man. I'll see you later.
Hey, buddy.